Very good afternoon, everybody. So in this section, we have 3 speakers from the industry. So the first speaker is Dr. Ang Keat. Let me see. Okay, Dr. Ang is an experienced lead in sustainable business in regional projects and business development, including design, planning, implementation. His expertise covers sustainability and environment, industrial, marine, oil, and gas sectors. His experience includes the conversion of industry solid waste to value-added resources, biomass waste conversion to energy, municipal waste management, wind solar hybrid application, desalination system, and heat transfer equipment. He advises foreign organizations in Singapore and the Asian region on advancing sustainability issues, including on the ground solution for urban and rural environment. So Dr. Ang is the chairman of Zero Waste Singapore. So without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Ang.
Thank you very much. Okay, first of all, it's not doctor, it's Mr. All right. Okay, the first 2 sessions were quite interesting with Nick and Ang Lee. And I actually want to divert slightly before I start my presentation. Hang on a second. Here it is. In regards to the food waste, one is that in the question to Nick, in supermarkets in Singapore, we have, it's not mandatory yet, but our National Environment Agency has actually asked these supermarkets and large food processors to start to compile their information and data. So obviously, it will eventually need to be regulated and verified first. Otherwise, everybody wants to under-declare. Okay, the other one on Okura is actually quite interesting because it's one of the things that ingredients we used when I was in another company as to convert from waste into a useful product. So what happens here is this one. Can you see this?
Yes.
Okay. This is actually okra or soya bean. All right, and that comes from a factory. So we were actually at an industrial level. Sometimes we use it for composting. So that's actually a big amount, several tons of mix of compost, and okura is actually one of the ingredients. It's very good because okura has about the highest proportion of nitrogen, which obviously if you make into compost, it's good for the plants. All right, and this is another example in the plant that I built. This is actually a wheat waste. So when you're making your drink, wheat-based drink, this is delivered to us. It's very wet. It's like 80%, 90% moist, wet, and you can see the water flowing out here. All right. So what happens is that we use bulldozers to dump all of this here, and it goes up the conveyor, and eventually goes to this dryer and comes out as a high quality, very dry animal feed. So although it's not good for humans, it's actually very good for animals, high protein. All right. So this is the end product. This one is a bit whitish and orangey because of the grains. The thing is that we get paid about at that time $10 a ton, and they actually we arrange for delivery. But we export to food manufacturers, animal food manufacturers in Malaysia, who send the trucks to us and they collect. So we sell to them at something like $100 a ton. So you're really turning waste, getting an income, and of course into a product that you sell and people come and collect. So essentially there is no more waste. All right, so this is the okura in the foreground and the wheat at the background. We're talking about many tons, it can be 70, 80 tons a day. This is what happens inside the dryer. There's a very short clip. So this is on the other side. And of course, we did an experiment before to use all this food waste from the Pasir Panjang wholesale center, but it has to be done immediately. Otherwise you end up attracting a lot of flies. Okay, let's see. This is a very short clip of what is inside the dryer. When it comes down from 80% moisture, comes up to below 5%, very dry. Okay, that's about it. Okay, can you see my slide deck? Okay, right. So this is obviously Zero Waste Singapore, achieving the zero waste target and engaging the community, because you cannot just leave it to a few organizations. Yes,
we cannot see your slides.
Oh,
it's still on the the folder. If you want to, you must share your computer screen fully.
Okay, hang on a second. Let me do that. I have to close that first.
Click on the share screen button.
Okay.
The green button.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Maybe you have to zoom it.
Yeah. How's this? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Got it. All right. So I covered I'll have a introduction, just the zero waste in general in Singapore, and then about the organization. Okay. In this case, we'll start with, like anything else, with the definition of zero waste. So some of these I'm not going to read because obviously we all know how to read and write. So it's really something that it's more aspirational, which is to move waste from the back end of waste disposal out of sight and out of mind to the front end of resource management. So if you look at it, previously we started with a linear economy. All right, so we all know that it goes one way, what's then extract, use, throw. So then we had the reuse economy. So some of it gets thrown back into the system. And how much of that? I think it's very little, obviously. So now we need to do more. So at the same time, then we migrate into the circular economy, which is obviously the fashion thing to do now. We still get raw materials and it goes around here. So the next thing that we need to look at is actually the cradle to cradle aspects of it. So we have to move over. Fundamentally, what we would be involved is, for example, urban farming. Actually, that should be urban mining and urban farming in this case, because there's food, reprocessing and remanufacturing. And obviously, Singapore is beginning to look into this with several institutes being set up. So you no longer really take raw materials for which there is a very long logistics chain, and you get into production. So this is very important, and that's where we are heading to. So a bit of history, so to speak. So obviously in the beginning, people just dump because there's plenty of space and not as many people. Landfills, and then to composting, recycling, landfill, the waste to energy technology came out here. Again, like anything else, you need a few people to get onto it. So this has not become mainstream yet, even waste to energy. So eventually what we're doing for is a sixth wave. We put in zero waste systems through behavioral change and sustainable consumption. All right. So eventually it will become what we call a sustainable virtual loop, and that has to involve everybody. Okay, a little bit of background. On the left side, as you can see here, the rural population was there, and obviously going back, we don't have that many people in the cities. So pretty much cross the 50% mark, here, sorry. And again, as we all realize now, as the cities become bigger, it's going to be much more higher. There are good and not so great issues about having a higher urban population. But so the other point is we have to look at the growth. In this case, if you look at it, obviously, if you look at the gradient, you can also see that Japan has a very high migration to being an urban, highly urbanized US. The world is here a bit slow. China has grown very big, and by sheer size, it has a major impact on the world. And India is there, not far behind, and they will also have significant impact on world consumption of almost everything, knowledge consumption, production, and waste. All right, so what are the challenges? I think this is quite straightforward. If you look at it, there are many challenges. We have to start obviously tackling them. And right now, as we all know, environment is the greatest threat because it's going to be there and many things are not going to be immediately reversible. Resources, finance, and I think depending on who you are talking to, we are consuming 3 or 4 Earths. And again, depending, whether you're kind of first world, Western world, or and whether you are third world. So the thing now we're talking about inequality. Definitely, we know that things are not equitable. It can be a matter of distribution. There's more than enough in the world, but obviously some have more than others. And definitely technology will play a major part and will continue to play. The other point that's more important than overarching is governance and complexity. How do we know that certain people are not monopolizing? So this is actually a problem because when you start thinking about that, we take for granted common resources. So this is what we call a tragedy of the commons. It's there. So we all, start to take our part without being responsible. So it can be fish, it can be anything. In fact, it can even be not just on the global base or regional. If you had a small fishing pond, everybody wants to fish, but who's going to restock and make sure there's a sustainable amount of fish that will be there for the long term. So these are all very impactful. It's not just a matter of not in my own bank, yeah, but eventually it will come back. Okay. So next slide. Okay. So again, for sustainability, a zero waste city is nice to think about, very aspirational, but it requires everything, behavioral change, which is most likely the most difficult to change everyone. Extended producer and consumer responsibility. I think we all know that Singapore is actually trying to get producers to be more responsible. So it's not just a one-way street. So we have many acts coming in where, producers and manufacturers have to be responsible for getting some of the packaging back. Yeah. And obviously the consumer has a great part to be playing in this one. If you look at it, consumer power is very significant. 100% recycling or waste. It is again something that is a work in progress. Over here, zero landfill is something that in Singapore, we know that it's actually quite a problem with the Semakau landfill running out of space, and incineration so far is an option, but it's certainly not something that can carry on forever. Therefore, we should look at resource recovery 100%. Okay, so again, coming back to Singapore, what is Singapore's zero waste? Okay, the government has obviously come out with the zero waste master plan, the great overarching plan. We need the climate resilience, resource resilience, economic resilience. So these three are all tied in together. So All right, so this is one of the things, and you can see a lot of this recycling rate has improved, and then it's become quite static. Part of the thing is because the easy low-hanging fruits were actually achieved via industrial and commercial waste recycling, because these industrial and commercial players are actually willing to pay a cost to somebody to take away and remove. Obviously, our consumer waste is not getting that much attention. Okay, so and again, this has dropped down here because of COVID. Domestic and non-domestic over the years. So you can see that it's going down for the. This is the domestic. It's just going down, partly because of COVID. But I think that we need to do more, right? So at the beginning, from decades ago, Singapore was quite a well-known place for, and was declared a garden city. So now we are moving from a garden city to a city in a garden. We were there, and the next thing is our pillar one is to become a city in nature. So nature is surrounding us now, and we have to appreciate what is there. Pillar two is sustainable living, and also maintaining a high standard of living. The pillar three is energy reset, something that government has been pushing for quite a few years to diversify our energy source. Something that's extremely difficult because 90% of our energy comes from gas. But again, it's better to do something than nothing. Solar is growing very fast. And of course, then we have the green economy, which will be another driver of future economies. And looking forward towards the future will be our resilient future. How do we ensure our not just being resilient, our survival, bearing in mind that Singapore is a small island and subject to everything out there. Okay, this is the statistics for last year. So if you look at it, we have circled the recycling rate is quite low for plastics, which is what, and food waste. Zero waste obviously want to concentrate on these issues. It's not just a matter of percentage, that we look at the total amount of disposed. So you can see that 712,000 tons are disposed and plastics and food. Now, the not so great thing is we think it's good because we have incineration plant, therefore you burn. Yeah, that's not always the great case. And one of the things that you start to look at the industrial section of used slag is 99%. All right, non-ferrous metals. That's because we have the one and single National Irons works in Jurong that takes all the cars and then melt them into rebars. So there is an industrial purpose. But in Singapore, we have nothing. We do not have a factory that takes paper and recycle the paper. Everything is collected and used to be exported, mainly to China for their own use. But when that has stopped, the recycling rate actually dropped. Okay, so we don't have an industry that caters to the amount who wants to be the first. So the problem, of course, this takes millions of dollars to set up a plant. And versus the commercial cost of can that new factory beat the existing cost of paper generation, which is very, very cheap. Okay, so if you look at it, this piece of news, the NEA is awarded a project for a pilot plastic recovery facility to develop waste scale advanced plastic recycling. Hopefully that they will come and eventually we have scale, because scale brings down costs. All right. So, and even for that matter, not just for the plastic, how do we reimagine the entire chemicals industry? So, for example, here we are as consumers, and we have domestic waste. Then there is plastic recovery. Obviously, plastic is difficult to recover because it's sort of everywhere and it's very light, and unfortunately, often more than not, it's contaminated. Okay, so this is the part of chemical recycling, the pyrolysis, and a number of other processes. then this is converted and fed back into the petrochemical plant. Then from there, they reproduce the ingredients into new products. Okay. So one of the issues here is that our statistics also comes out every year. So, you know, when by the time we know about it, 1 year has gone by. So quarterly reports might be more important for people to know and take action rather than wait. Okay, this is another presentation to show how waste is, and you can see when you look at it, it's a lot different from just looking at statistics in the earlier slide. So if you look at e-waste, it's a major issue, which is government is now trying to tackle. Only 6% is recycled now by households. Food waste, okay, only 17%, and packaging waste at only 4%. So if you think about that, 60,000 tons are generated a year. So if you imagine that's like 5,000 tons a month. Okay, and much as you don't like it, you know, every one of us would eventually generate something like 11 kilos of waste, electronic e-waste, one way or the other. Having said that, those are small. But the major issue is washing machines. I know we don't change washing machines every year or every few years, but by weight, they are there. Okay, and refrigerators. So these white goods, including computers, are actually a majority of our electronic waste. They need to be looked at. Unfortunately, consumers have their own preference on how do we make it more recyclable. Okay, so another issue again is going back to food waste. It is statistics, recycling rate from 10 years ago, it's hardly gone, it has marginally gone up actually. And I think that it's obviously going even higher for this year because of again COVID, where everybody is eating in and ordering. Here we are a mix, so you can imagine why it's so difficult to tackle. Some of the food waste can be converted into compost, like here, which I showed a bit earlier. Okay. From here, for example, you can see here, this is sort of a connected mind map for food distribution, consumers, compost. You make everything and goes around. Okay, so if you look at the outer circle, it makes a lot of sense. The inner circle, obviously, have other things, and the supermarkets play a very important role here. There are now quite a lot of organizations, NGOs that participate in food rescue or donation, agri-foods too, and composting, black soldier flies, for which we'll hear more of later. And these are actually quite good because this can be made into animal feed, not just for fish, but for chickens. Okay, one of the things in Singapore is that our districts have become very active in sort of sustainable issues. So this is an example of sustainable Southwest district. So they have action plans. Okay, action plans are good, but you have to execute them. So there's active gracious people, clean green spaces, smart homes, green rides, and zero waste journey. So this involves everybody. So the thing is that with zero waste and any kind of NGO, there are challenges that faces all of us involved in this. There is a lack of outreach because we are still relatively new. Some people might say that, okay, I'm paying somebody to get rid of it, so it's no longer my problem. So fortunately, you know, social media has been very useful to reach out, but we still need to change attitude. Funding, of course, funding is actually quite a problem. Much as everybody says it's a good thing, then when you start asking for donations, it's a bit of a problem. More often than not, donations are not as easy to obtain. Government grants and fees, yes, that's actually useful. And it's something that NGOs and ourselves would also like to reduce by having business corporates to step up and donate, not just to us, but to anybody. Okay, we're quite fortunate that there are a number of corporates that do support us in our programs, not just one-off programs, but a long-term, which is very useful for our manpower planning. Again, it's very hard to attract good staff. So I can say that all our people are quite passionate, and that's been very useful over the years. So we have a lot of volunteers. That's quite good. So they help to spread the message, especially in our outreach. What are the solutions? Well, there are several solutions, but again, governments and corporates need to be proactive, to be really proactive, to support social enterprises by developing projects, grants, and paying higher rates for public awareness, CSR, and in-house activities. Corporates, much as they see this, some of them see this as overheads, but I can assure you that by doing so, it actually improves your brand awareness. There are even other NGOs that actually provide pro bono services to other NGOs. So imagine there's a whole sort of industry in this sector. Now, a little bit more on zero waste. So really, we are a charity, a registered charity leading the drive towards zero waste through education and advocacy. We have to engage the public and corporates on the 3 R's. Obviously, there's another R that's not mentioned is to refuse and don't get onto it. But let's face it, you have to use it. The 4 focus areas are plastics, food waste, household recycling, organizational waste. In terms of waste, about 50% more or less divided between the 2. Not necessarily in order of priority, but 1, 2, and 3 are all important. Engagement, educate and engage, influence policies, and we have to collaborate to drive change. We don't expect the corporates to do it themselves, because one of the things they sometimes don't know what to do for sure. All right. So this becomes very important because we need to drive this message of zero waste, which is really waste prevention, a redesign of resource life cycles so that all products are reused, and the word is all and reused. Fundamentally, it's a long-term goal. Okay, this is a little bit background, like, formally we were set up in 2008 as a website over the years, and we were incorporated as a non-profit in 2015, and since then we have been having various campaigns, Safe Food Cut, BYO, and then there's been some issues. We have managed to put up Singapore guides, bring your own bag, and launch Zero Waste Schools. The reasons, obviously, Zero Waste Schools are critical to update the young. So now we have a BYO, bring your own container campaign in the hawker centers. All right. So we were, again, coming back is the general public awareness. We organize education campaigns. Okay. Corporates and school raise awareness. Again, all these are long-term, and with the government, we aim to influence us, like, hopefully they will listen to us. And I think that they do listen to us and get our feedback. One of the things that we do that in terms of trying to advocate in the past, push the message. So for example, our latest issue has been the BYO landscape evolution. These are the links. All right, it's quite a good. There's a summary of that. Most of our reports are free. There's a couple that has a small fee, very small. It goes 100% into the organization. So if you're interested, you can have to look at that. Okay. Right. So this is like, if you are keen to push your corporate, download the reports and contact us. All right, so this is another one, our guide for retailers. So in 2018, we audited 100 very popular F&B retailers across various categories. All right, so this is a very interesting report, and so that retailers can see where they are or where they are not. And many years ago, 2016, we had a recommendation for plastic bag change, and our government is going to be instituting that, I think, starting in January in certain supermarkets. All right, so this is one of the first one. So these are position papers, quite detailed. Oh, I left the link. Again, these are some photos of our public engagement. All right. Not just in small groups itself, right? But also we have a program, Zero Waste Schools, where we actually engage with schools, give talks, and run programs. So here we are. Here, so there's another one. It's very important. Okay. This is also another one about not wasting food, an initiative by Ministry of Sustainability and Environment to promote and encourage household food recycling. This is a little bit more difficult because we have to go back to individual households. And one of them is we have tied up to do some work with one Japanese hub. All right, and this is actually what's happened. Households participating in a program where they actually segregate their own household waste into food waste and caddies. Then it's taken down for measurement, and the waste collector takes it out to our company's hub and resorted. Eventually, these are all turned into food waste converted into compost. So this is actually one of the ways. It's a good program. Okay, we have had some very good media features. It's all helpful to go out to outreach and improve our outreach. All right, this is our social media. We would call everybody, actually, and anybody who's willing to talk to us. Okay, so again, we have sponsorships. We're looking for sponsorship, and we also provide services. So it's not just a one-way street of asking for money. These are some of our very good partners here who've been continuously supporting us. All right, so that's actually the last bit of my talk. Second. So anybody has any questions? Just stop sharing on this in a second.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. We are actually running a bit late, so maybe we can have our 2 questions.
Yeah.
Any questions? If not, may I just ask you one question, Dr. Ang? So in this waste recycling business, what do you think is the most challenging thing?
Actually, the thing is, the problem is that waste management is something that has been for many years out of sight, out of mind. So you can imagine that most people don't want to talk to waste because it's not glorious, it's not sexy. Yes. Okay, in terms of low value added. But again, you can imagine that in the recent COVID cases, the essential workers were fundamentally the waste collectors, all right, and the front line, not those of us who work in the office, all right. So everybody is important, yeah. But you have to also recognize, we have to recognize that these people are actually essential workers, right? So I think then we have to do our part, everybody, and not just depend on a few.
Yes. I have one question here, which is anonymous attendee. So the question is, some region ban the use of plastic bags. So you can't get plastic bag at all the supermarket, convenience store, even with paying extra money. Does it help reduce waste? And is it likely for Singapore to also take this step?
Okay, well, I'll answer the last bit. The answer is it's very unlikely that we will go all the way to that, simply because use of plastic is quite important, especially given that we are a very warm country. It's not that we are like 10 degrees C. Yeah. Okay, so it's a matter of being pragmatic about the whole thing, and you have to also realize that the plastics in Singapore waste is fundamentally incinerated. So even if the plastic bags are just plastic bags, or even they are so-called recyclable, at the end of the day, all of that is going to be incinerated, becoming part of the fuel mix in the IPs. The issue then is to reduce the use of plastics and disposables, not eliminate it altogether, which I don't see happening here. The other point is that we also have to have alternatives. If you have no plastic bag, what other bags do you have? So there is no good alternative as yet.
Agree. Okay, so for the sake of time, then let's thank Dr. Ang for the excellent talk. And then I think for that, I would like to move on to the second speaker. Thank you, Dr. Ang.
Thank you.